But mismatching is a reason why I think they end up canceling the caregivers. Fourth is poor communication or like a lack of clarity about their role. So sometimes they just sit there and the client doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing for them, right? Welcome to Aging in Style with Lori Williams, the podcast all about finding the silver lining no matter what life throws your way. I'm Lori Williams, an award-winning senior living expert, author, educator, and caregiver to my husband, Mark. Join me as I share insights, tips, and personal stories to help you navigate the world of senior housing, discover ways to pay for care, advocate for your loved ones, and most importantly, learn how to thrive, not just survive, as you age. Hi, welcome back to Aging in Style. I'm Lori Williams, and today we are talking about something that makes so many adult children want to scream into a pillow. And I just experienced this myself. So I am happy to share with you personally and then also professionally, and then a little research that I did, just going to add it all in there to see if we can figure out how we can keep this happening to you. So what happens is you schedule a caregiver for your aging parent because they really need some help, and then they cancel on you. Or worse, your parent tells them to leave the moment they walk in the door and just say they don't need any help. So does that sound familiar? That has happened in my family twice with my own mother. So let me just tell you the story, and I'm not throwing my mom under the bus. Kind of hope she's not listening to this one. But anyhow, I recently traveled to Mississippi, where my mom lives, and she's been taking care of her husband, who unfortunately has dementia, which has progressed. And so we are, in plans to go with the memory care, but it's kind of been up and down because, of course, it's a very difficult decision to make for anyone. And I know my mom feels a lot of guilt because, her husband's he's a really wonderful guy, but she cannot take care of him. So we found a place, but they have a waiting list. So we're waiting to get them in. So I tell you all the time, if you listen to the podcast, don't wait to make a plan because a waiting list happen. They happen, obviously. So we're waiting, and she has a caregiver who's been coming to help, but she needs 24/7 care now. So we get it set up, and I'm still there. I'm staying with my brother, and we get a call and find out that she sent the caregiver home who was there. And then now she's kind of in crisis because her husband's not really recognizing her and things are sort of going downhill. So she calls my other brother, who has to leave work and come over to help her. So of course, we get there and I'm like, why? Why did you send the woman home? And she goes, well, she was just kind of just being overprotective over Joe. She was just hovering. And it was really bothering him. And so I'm like, oh, dear. Okay. Well, this is what happens. This is what my clients tell me is happening with their parents. So let's talk about this. This was kind of like a moment that hit me that even though this is something I do for a living and I have all these resources and connections, it happened in my family too, so don't feel alone. So this made me just really think, the whole rest of my stay there, my whole time traveling home on the plane, I was just kind of thinking about this and did a little research. And I just was wondering, why? Why do older adults cancel their caregivers after, you're trying to abide by their wishes, right? And you want to make sure they're safe. They're trying to stay home as long as possible. Or in this case, now we have a place for him to go. We've waited a little long, so now we're on a waiting list. But nevertheless, what is the reason why? We're trying as adult children to do our best here and make sure there's care. So here's what I came up with. And the top reasons that I think that this happens, that older adults cancel the caregivers, it's usually not because, they just hate the idea of getting help. It goes deeper than that. So first one, loss of control. Having a stranger in their home can really feel like an invasion of privacy. And I get that. I, had to get over myself because I had to bring a caregiver in to help with my husband. And initially we were trying to do this all on our own because it is weird to have someone in your house initially. But if you have the right person, they become like family. And so what if they see you left dishes in the sink or, life is messy when you're a caregiver. It is. And, I have a big dog and now a puppy because I'm insane. That's a whole other story. But they see us at our worst. The caregivers come when I'm like running around like a mad woman. I'm not even dressed. I'm half in pajamas, half dressed, no makeup on. And, it's chaos. So I think that's part of it for them. Like they want to look like they've got everything together. They don't want someone coming into the house, which also leads to the second reason, which is embarrassment. So embarrassment of, maybe your house isn't perfect, or going deeper than that, actually needing help with bathing or dressing. That's very humbling and can be humiliating. I mean, just the thought of someone having to bathe me, I don't like that idea. I don't think any of us like the idea of a stranger or even my children having to bathe me. God, I hate that thought. But you know what? Sometimes life happens and that's where we are. You can't do it yourself, so you have to have the help. Third, mismatch. Maybe the caregiver is just not a good personality fit. So, for example, this lady who my mom said was hovering and it was driving her husband crazy. That's not a good fit for them. They don't want someone who is hovering. And, maybe this lady just felt like she didn't know him. So she might have, in her defense, felt like he's a fall risk and I just want to really be close by him. And she didn't know like what his abilities are. And he is a huge fall risk. So I get it. She doesn't want him falling on her watch. So I would imagine that's the reason on that. But mismatching is a reason why I think they end up canceling the caregivers. Fourth is poor communication or like a lack of clarity about their role. So sometimes they just sit there and the client doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing for them, right? So I don't know, my mom may have been like, I'm making his breakfast, I'm doing this. And the caregiver's like, yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So that's really important to be clear on what you need them to come into your home to do. For again, my example, my husband, the caregiver comes about 4 hours, 4 days a week. And in that time, it's just to kind of give everyone a break. I'm at work. She does my laundry, which I actually didn't ask her to do. She just started doing it. And I'll tell you what, that's like the best thing ever because I hate doing laundry. So she does things like, cleans the kitchen, like kind of what my expectations were. Just watch over Mark, trim his nails, just make sure he's safe, going to and from the bathroom on his own, companionship, kind of take care of my dog, let her in and out, as needed. And so that was kind of my expectations. But, I'm kind of guilty here too. I really didn't lay it out because I kind of, in this moment, just realized why, because I felt kind of weird about asking her to do personal things for me. That's so silly, right? Because we're paying her, but I just felt I didn't want to be like, can you do this? Can you do this? I'm just like, just keep an eye on him. That was my main objective. So poor communication and just really lacking that clarity of what you want from a caregiver. And then the fifth one is denial. And many older adults, they think they're just fine. They don't need help until there's a crisis. And I think that's, the case with my mom. They waited a long time before they started bringing in caregivers, and probably a little bit too long, but they have had them coming in, but now they're to the point that they need caregivers 24/7. And I think that was also a case of, we're fine, but they weren't. Again, using myself as an example, I initially thought I can do everything until I was like literally kind of having a mental breakdown. And my friend Carol, who I love and adore, kind of gave me that wake up, like in the old movies, like that slap across the face, like get it together. You cannot do all this by yourself. You need a caregiver. So again, I personally was in denial about it. All right. So those are the reasons why I believe that older adults end up canceling caregivers. So let's jump on to like, what can we do? How can we like set expectations? And this is what I've learned the hard way. It's setting expectations up front can make or break this experience. So what's really important is, one, you need to talk to your loved one first. Explain why care is needed. Let them be part of the conversation. At this point with my mom's husband, I don't know that a conversation could really be had about it. I think initially when they decided to bring in care, he was on board and understood, but he didn't want them there all the time. My example with my husband, and I've shared this before in another podcast, but I told him I'm having a caregiver start. This is why he cried, I cried, because it was giving up. For me, giving up that I could fully take care of him and do everything and work and do, which it's crazy. I get that now. But at the time, I felt like I am Superwoman. I've come through all this. I'm going to take care of him and I'm going to work and I can still, manage everything, which is insane. I couldn't do that. But it's a difficult thing. And then for him, it was all the loss of control, embarrassment, all the things we talked about earlier. Also, in setting expectations, be very clear about what the caregiver will and won't do. Like, for example, I'd like them to help with lunch, fix a lunch for my loved one, do like housekeeping, companionship, those kinds of things. So just be very clear. Do they need to help with bathing and dressing? Really think about it, and it can always change down the road, but these are kind of like the basic needs. Like, as I gave as an example for myself, I just wanted her coming, fix him a meal, his lunch, make sure he had water, make sure he was fine going to and from the bathroom, let the dog out, and companionship. But as she was there, she's like, Mark's just watching TV, so I'm just going to do her laundry. I can see you really need the help. And I appreciate that because I'm not a good person. I'm not one who likes to ask for help. I just try to do it all on my own, which is not always a great thing. But that's where, just being very clear with a caregiver. And as time progresses, things may, kind of change. They may see a need, or you may think, hey, do you think you could add this on too? Start slowly. Even just a few hours, a couple of days a week is just a good way to kind of test the waters and see how things are going to go. We did that. We started off, I think we were just 2 days a week initially, and then we built up. And now, like I said, we're 4 days, 4 hours a week. And then let the caregiver know about your loved one's routines and their preferences. And that can really help with easing any kind of a transition. So, for example, again, with my own situation, my husband loves Starbucks coffee. And so we've kind of gotten into this routine on Fridays. His sweet caregiver, Rebecca, will treat him to a Starbucks. And then she also brings a pup cup for our dog. And he really likes that. He looks forward to that because he knows that on Friday that's going to happen. But she knows that he's kind of a little bit grumpy, not going to lie. And she has ways that, she knows how to talk to him now to get things done, and that he's not like, he doesn't want like a real big lunch. He's just kind of has his own like quirks and ways about him. And so she knows that now. Okay, we have talked now about why older adults cancel caregivers, how we can best set expectations, and then next is finding the right fit. So not every caregiver is a match, and it's okay to speak up, and you should. Like, if you don't think they're a good match, that's fine. Ask the agency if you can interview or meet the caregiver ahead of time. Usually that is fine. Look for someone with experience in a similar situation. So someone who has worked with people with dementia and understand, how that all works. Someone who's had a stroke, etc. And if your loved one has a particular personality, like maybe they're real spunky or they're cranky, super quiet or independent, just request someone who kind of meshes with that vibe. And I've had people tell me, okay, my mom needs help with bathing, but she does not want a man to come. And I get that. I wouldn't want a strange man coming and bathing me either. So they request a woman. Vice versa. I've had men who don't want a woman to bathe them, and we've had to get a man. Or maybe they're a big person and maybe they need a lot of help with transferring. So sometimes it does work better to send like a stronger man to help them. There's someone to fit everyone. So you just have to really think about what you want and let the agency know. Just good communication. If it doesn't work out, call the agency and ask for a replacement. They want to help. They want you to be happy. This is their business. This is how they grow their business, by having happy clients. They don't want you to be unhappy and then tell everyone, oh, I don't use such and such home care because I didn't like who they sent. No, they want to fit you with the person who's going to be best for your loved one's needs. Okay, last thing I want to talk about is make a plan B in case home care does not work out. This is crucial. And if you listen to the podcast, I say this all the time. you need to have plan A, B, C, D, whatever many plans you need to have. Home care or caregiver coming in, that can be a temporary solution. What if that fails? What if it's not enough? So you need to have already looked into having a list of local senior living communities or memory care or assisted living, whatever is going to meet your loved one's needs. You need to have a backup plan in place and even tour a few in advance, even if your loved one isn't ready yet. Very important. And then know the signs that it's time to consider moving. And some of those signs would be wandering, falls, caregiver burnout, or just their refusal to help and do things. So let me just tie this again back to my mom's situation, and that her husband has dementia. It has been coming on progressively, I'd say over a couple of years, but it has gotten significantly worse. And everything that kind of led to this is he had a fall. He had 2 falls. He went to the emergency room, went through the whole hospitalization, and he just kept declining, went to rehab, continued declining, and then back home, which kind of led me to where I needed to fly to Mississippi and see, what are we going to do and make a plan. So we're kind of like behind the ball because we're on a wait list, which thankfully, God bless them, they are going to get him in next week, which is great, into the memory care. But my mom won't have availability for assisted living for, who knows, maybe a couple of months. But just, have a plan. I have a plan if, God forbid, things, progress with my husband and I can't take care of him at home. And kind of know what is kind of your breaking point, or the point that you realize I can no longer safely care for my loved one at home, or I would have to have so many hours of caregiving service that would be beyond what we can afford. So I personally have given that thought. I can't afford a 24/7 caregiver for my husband. That's like $20,000 a month in this area of Dallas where I am. So there's absolutely 100% no way that's going to happen. So for me, the deal breakers, or the kind of that line in the sand, would be if he can no longer get up and transfer, get to and from the bathroom, or if he starts having falls, because I can't lift him up, and that's physically unsafe for him and unsafe for me. So that's kind of our line in the sand. So again, making sure you have a plan B, that is critical. So final thoughts that I have on this, and I just want to throw you some encouragement as well. So just listen up, because you are not failing if your parent sends a caregiver away. This is just all part of the process, and it is frustrating, yes, 100%, but you are not alone. And you're navigating through a lot of emotions on their part, on your part, just values that they may have, and, cognitive decline, family dynamics. I mean, all these things come into play, and it's a lot for anyone. So give yourself some grace if you're feeling frustrated because you're having a rough time getting home care set up for your parents. And, just remember, if it helps, even those of us who do this professionally, deal with this too. So you're not messing up. This is just, it's just part of it. As I said, we've shared the reasons why they cancel on caregivers, and then how we can set those expectations, finding the right fit with a caregiver, and then making a plan B. And if this podcast resonated with you, just shoot me a message or tag a friend who's been there. And if you need help navigating care options in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that's what my team and I do every day. And it's a free service. So give us a call. You do not have to go this alone. So please share this podcast. Go on, follow us. We have a new episode every Friday. Share it with all your friends and family members. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next week. Hi, thank you for listening. Navigating care for a loved one who's a stroke survivor can be totally overwhelming. Yes, the internet is free and there's a ton of information out there, but also your time is valuable. That's why I wrote my book, Surrounded by Love, One Family's Journey Through Stroke Recovery. In the book, I document everything that I've learned and wish someone had told me about while I was navigating the first months of stroke recovery with my husband, Mark. It's available now on Amazon and all other online book retailers. There's also a link in the show notes that you can click to get your own copy.